The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click support us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille.
Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as we journey to some of Italy's most beautiful places in the company of those who know them best, the families who grow grapes and make fabulous wines. Through their stories, we will learn not just about their wines, but also about their ways of life, the local and regional foods and specialities that pair naturally with their wines, and the most beautiful places to visit. We have a wonderful journey of discovery ahead of us, and I hope you will join me. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today it's my great pleasure to travel to the Barolo wine hills of the Langa in Piemonte to meet my guest Francesca Vajra from the renowned GD Vajra winery located just outside of Barolo itself. Buongiorno, Francesca. Thanks so much for being my guest today. How are you? And is it a beautiful day in Langa?
It's a fantastic day, even better because of this talk with you, Marc. Thank you for your introduction. And it's absolutely a joy to be here and to share this podcast with you.
Well, I'm really excited to have our conversation. But to give our listeners a vivid impression of where you are, and I can picture it myself because it is such a magical place. Can you describe where you are in the wine hills of Barolo? Because it is such a special wine zone.
Yes, I feel always very grateful and blessed, if I have to say the truth, about the place I born and where I do live. We are in Barolo. We are actually in the upper part of the village of Barolo. Barolo is a place that many people know because of the wine. Indeed, is a super, super small place in the world. We are on the western ridge of the Barolo village as well as the Barolo production area. What does it mean? We are living in our winery is based in Bricco delle Viole, which among the historical crew of the Barolo production area has always been the highest and the western of those crew. What standing on Bricco delle Viole allowed you to see the Alps arising from with the Alpi Liguri and then the Marittime and then the Cozie. So the very first three sectors of the Alp. The Liguri, as the name say, they divide Piemonte and Liguria. So everything you see from in front view and then going to your left is actually the Barolo production area. So you will be able to see the village of Novello, the village of Monforte, the village of Serralunga, Castiglione Falletto, Grinzane Cavour. But then if you look on the other way, you really see these beautiful mountains. So the Alps, the biggest point we do see from the winery is called Monviso. It's a magic mountain. I grew up having the Monviso in my heart and in my eyes, and I realized growing up that I could not live without that. In between us and the Alps, we do have the beginning of the Pianura Padana. So this actually impacts beautifully the microclimate of the area. So being a bit higher in elevation, we always enjoy a beautiful ventilation, which is key. It means that it's never too humid in summertime, neither in wintertime. And this is actually explaining, according to somebody, the name of the hamlet where we do live, which is quite a strong name. It's called Bergne. And according to somebody, belongs from this idea of svernare. So people say that the Latins, they used to trade along the river, which is running all around Barolo production area. The river starts south, it go up north, and it turns its way of flowing from west into east. So it's exactly the opposite if we think of the main rivers in France, especially whenever we talk of winemakings and rivers. And this river almost create like a 90-degree corner, which represent the northwest side of the Barolo production area. And apparently the people used to trade along this river. The major town of the area is called Alba, was founded by the Latin. The ancient name was Alba Pompeia. But then we do have Cherasco, which is another beautiful and precious gem, quite famous if we talk about food because of chocolate and above all because of nails. In Cherasco takes its name because it was a castrum, a military camp. In between, we have Pollenz, where the university created by Slow Food is based. In any way, the Latin used to trade along the river, but were smart people. They did not want to live too close to the river, which means too much humidity. And also in terms of farming, yes, it means a great opportunity to have access to the water, but then also the risk of frost. And so they used to move up on the hills where my family is living. We have a quite special surname. Our surname historically is carrying the J. We always wonder where the family was coming from because the J is a bit different, let's say, sound and letter into the Italian alphabet. We don't really know, but we know that we are in Barolo and we are in Bricco delle Viole since the 1600s. So we are deeply rooted here.
Well, that's an absolutely brilliant description, both of the area, but you've not just given a vivid picture of, I'm imagining the Alps are snow-covered now. That Monviso, that pointed mountain, very distinctive mountain, is covered in snow. Is that right?
So, yeah, we have a little bit of snow. Indeed, yesterday night and this morning we have such a warm air. It's quite impressive. People say that, weather forecasts expect a lot of snowstorms. We can wait to have snows. Actually, as you might know, we had 2021 and 2022 has been very dry vintages in the region. Whenever we talk about Barolo, we are talking about dry farming. So what does it mean is that we really belong somehow to the snow. It's not a surprise whenever you travel and you drive around Barolo area that there are so many little chapels dedicated to the Holy Mary of the snow. Somehow we realize why so many churches, because people were really begging the Holy Mary in this Catholic tradition we do have in the region to receive a lot of snow through the during the winter time. The most part of soil we do have in the area is clay. Having the snow means that the snow is melting little by little, and this is giving time to the clay to absorb the water. And this is going to be the water that the roots of the vines are going to steal out of the clay later in the season. So because of this lack of water, because of this lack of snow mainly, we wish we were going to have a lot of snow. There is also a way of saying, which you might have heard, spending so much time in Italy, these expressions say that the weather is going to take place the day of Santa Bibiana, which is December the 4th, is going to be extended basically for the most part of definitely the very first part of the winter.
What happened on December 4th this year?
I was not at the winery, so I was abroad, but I called my dad and say, hey, how's the weather over there? And they told me it's amazing here. It's sunny and it's nice. And I say, okay, maybe not so much skiing this winter.
Right, yeah.
But we will see. We will see. I mean, the season is very long. I can say I love this job because I keep being amazed by nature and his energy and the fact that whenever you think things are lost, they are never lost. Something amazing always happen, almost as a caress.
Okay. Now, Francesca, GD Vajra is totally a family enterprise. Your parents, Aldo and Milena, speak of their immense pride that you are una squadra, a team. But first of all, you're a family. So tell us the story of your family wine estate and introduce us to your family. Introduce us to the squadra.
Look, Mark, whenever I have to talk about my family, and whenever I'm traveling, because this is actually a little bit my job to be somehow the face, the front woman, let's say that, of our family and team, I wish I could pick and bring everybody in my luggage, so to let everybody to know each of the member of the family. I have to say is a quite a special family. My father family, so my grandparents Giuseppe and Francesca, they both born in this hamlet of the village of Barolo, so Vergne. And soon after the Second World War, they moved into the town of Torino. And being somehow some of the very first people moving there, they've been in charge of helping their friends and the kids of their friends to find a job, to find a house in Torino. I don't know how many people really know the story of Barolo, because whenever you come right now, you can see a place of wealth, you can see a place of culture. People are traveling a lot in our area, and people from all over the world, they travel to the area. So this, from a cultural point of view, it's extremely enriching. And this is also impacting the food scenes and how the restaurants have been changed through the years. But back in time, to move into the city was actually the only way to let your family survive. It's been, especially my family always told me that in between the 1950s and 1960s, we had 10 years in a row in the region of Barolo of awful weather, mainly impacted by hailstorms. And as you well know, whenever a hailstorm comes, there is really nothing you can do. Whenever I see the sky getting dark and I can smell the smell of the hail getting closer, the feeling is to run into the vines and embrace the vines and protect them. And then the moment you paint yourself already in the vineyards, you realize that with one arm, as much long as they can be, you wouldn't be able to protect not even one entire vine, So you always feel so small in front of the hailstorm. And I think this is what is keeping our family extremely humble in what we do. But well, in such a poor background economically, also consider that tractors that arrive in the plain 10 years ahead that the ones have been designed for the hill. So all the work was absolutely manual here. Somehow, soon after the Second World War, the city seems to be the biggest attraction. So my grandparents moved there. They got 5 kids. My father is the mid one. He has 2 older sisters, 2 younger brothers. And since the moment he had to choose for high school, his desire was to study agriculture and more specifically vine growing. Why so? It's true that he grew up in the city, but yet his grandparents of both the families were into the countryside. And he always saw his grandparents around, either Christmas time or Easter time or Sundays, or, he grew up with this idea that was a very tough work, being into farming, because very physically hard. But there was 6 days a week, and Sundays were Sundays. So he had this image of his grandparents' white shirt around the table, a lot of great food, good wines, and everything. And so little by little, probably he had this idea that that could be the coolest job. He was willing to work hard for 6 days a week. He was willing to work hard for 9 months in a year, because the 3 months in winter time, they use partly to have a lot of snow. So he somehow painted himself to spend his days in winter time, to just get out, maybe break 2 pieces of wood, put into the fireplace, and then spending his time to read and research and keep improving his wines and his knowledge about the area and the farming and everything. My grandparents, of course, saw this idea as, that was not even an option to consider, because you were farmers back in the 60s if you were not skilled enough to do a step ahead into the social ladder. So whenever you were coming from different background, why being a farmer? So they did not allow him to study viticulture at high school. And that was studied in Torino in 1968 took place. It was quite intense in that town. And there was the moment my grandparents, they actually realized that probably was a good idea to send my father into the countryside to spend the whole summertime. And into their eyes and mind, that was a win-win project, because it will show my dad that being a farmer was absolutely not cool. It will keep my dad far away from troubles. And it will show the other siblings that if anybody want to be involved into the revolution, the only revolution for them was to grab a hoe and work the soil. These things did not really happen. At the end of the summer, my father went back to his parents and basically told them, I realize being a vine grower, this is really what I want to do. The same year, the older sharecropper, my grandparents actually, they moved into the bigger town, but my grandfather always kept the family house, which always have also beautiful name. It's always being called La Cascina. So with the article, so the farmhouse. So that is already telling about how special that unity of land and that house were. So he always kept that, and he had this sharecropper was living there and was taking care of the fields and everything. So the guy decided to retire. We're at the end of sharecropping system. So if any of his kids wanted to keep on this system, the system could be care in between generations. But since none of his kids wanted to be a sharecropper anymore, then my grandfather had to choose in between renting the property or hiring somebody. And they decided to entrust my dad, who started to take care of the exploitation of the family at the age of 15. So he was extremely young. He was a city guy. He actually has been the city guy for a long time. And it is. And so age of 15, my dad started. He started to take care of an exploitation that was 7 hectares, of which only 0.4 were vineyards.
Francesca, what year was this, roughly?
1968.
Okay.
That was versus the end of his career at high school. After that, he finished. He decided to go for agriculture. He is agronomist as his background. And agronomy back in time was really a vision 360 degrees. So he has been educated on vineyards, winemaking, but as well as cattle and little animals and peach trees and grains. And so his vision has always been very complete. In 1961, Dada certifies production organic. He has been the very first vine grower to certify his production in the entire region of Piemonte. In 1972, another tough vintage hit the area. His family always sold the fruit. My dad was a student, so till that moment he was farming and taking care of picking the fruit and selling. In 1962, the people who used to sell his fruit were not interested in purchasing the fruit. And then versus the end of the season, when it was time really to pick the grapes, they were offering such a ridiculous amount of money. So we joke with Dad. His 1968 is a revolution. Actually took place 4 years later in 1972, when he refused himself to sell his fruit for nothing. And my grandparents didn't really, let's say, understood at first this vision. When my dad had to prove him and show him the data, he could not be supported. He was not supported by his family at the time of the picking, so he had to hire people. He knew exactly how much was costing to hire the people and how much money they will be able, how much grapes they will be able to pick. And so to do calculation for him, that has been extremely easy. And what this calculation proves is that the cost of the picking was actually higher than the amount of money they will get selling the same amount of fruit. So that was simply a net loss on picking. And when my grandpa saw that and understood a bit as a challenge, look my dad and say, okay, if you think you can do better, do by yourself. And he just gave him the money to buy the very first distemp machine, the very first press, and his very first cask. 3 years ago, we have been able to rebuy this very first press. And it's been a beautiful moment because my dad asked my brothers and I, say, hey, the old guy to who I sold my very first press finally came yesterday and asked if we are interested in buying that again.
That's an amazing story. Francesca, I think it's really important for our listeners to understand this picture that you've given so vividly, that although Barolo is one of the most famous wines in the world now, a wine that attracts people to the area, to Alba during the truffle season, to taste the foods, to taste these magnificent wines. And though Barolo itself has a history, modern Barolo going back to Cavour and to Carlo Alberto, the story of this renaissance of a wine zone is actually very recent. And your father was really at the start of this renaissance of Barolo. And now, there's so many fine producers in this small area. But going back 40, 50 years ago, it wasn't like that. The name wasn't yet around the world as it is now.
Indeed. But these things always amaze me a lot. But when I look at my dad and I look to many other people of his generation, what I see are people that had a great desire to prove themselves. Were people that if they decided to stay, or like in my dad, he was actually the only one to go back to being a farmer somehow, having way more opportunities in life as people were looking at him back in time. Well, were people who loved the place, who were hard workers and wanted to share the beauty they discovered themselves with other people. And this is the great energy. And those are the people of Piemonte, most part of the time, very humble, very low profile, but hard workers and with a huge heart.
Yes. So tell us now about you and your brothers are working with your mother and father still. Tell us about your team.
Sure. So my dad had these beautiful ideas and great vision. When he met my mom, I always painted two of them a little bit as my mom being the gas on the fire and the fuel on the fire. So whenever my dad met my mom and felt support by her, that has been really an incredible moment because everything is Vajra nowadays. It's something that was being built and projected by my dad and supported by my mom. But the two of them, they starting from the scratch. Also starting from family who did not approve them to do that. So they had a tough begin. That is not a secret. But together they make something amazing. And together they've been able, as parents, to, despite the fatigue, despite the tough time, when the hailstorms arrive and many other things that can happen in our job, but we always saw parents happy with their job. And I think this is the reason why Giuseppe, my older brother, then myself, then our younger brother Isidoro, one after the other, we understood that we love this job. So even if it was the kind of job that was not allowing us to have, let's say, classic parents that take you out on Saturdays, like we did many renounce, but it's so beautiful to be together. And myself, what I can tell you is that the same love for farming, I see that into my younger brother Isidoro, the same desire of research and perfection. I can see it into Giuseppe. So let's say that also the DNA of my family is about a lot of research. My dad created and did a lot of master selection with the Freisa grape, with Dolcetto. Those are grapes that have been lost through the years just to be focused on Nebbiolo. But we love them, and this is a big commitment to my family to keep farming. And so it's a serious biodiversity within the property, despite the fact we are vine growers. Before you were talking about, modern Barolo, we did a lot of research about how people used to enjoy Nebbiolo before Barolo was invented, and that's how Claret JC has been discovered. And that's something that we really, really love next time. And the first time we're going to meet in person, Mark, to show to you, because in terms of gastronomy, this old version of vinifying Nebbiolo, which was the way that people used at least from the 1600s until 1960s, which is a way lighter style. You can almost paint out as a pet net version of Nebbiolo, something that if you compare to Di Barolo as we do know nowadays is absolutely opposite. But there are two wines that on the table are amazing, complementary to each other. So it's all of us working together here. One of my sister-in-law, she's working with us as well, and then we are supported by una bellissima squadra, as you say. It's a beautiful team, and they share our values and is keeping improving together with us.
Well, that's a wonderful story, and a wonderful story of family above all, and of a belief going with your father in the land itself. The land, I guess he must have really realized at that young age of 15 that this isn't just farming. There's the capacity here to be able to make great wine, not just good wine, but great wine.
He always had this vision to make wines that could talk to the heart of the people. In what our wines since day zero aim to be is not to surprise. Actually, Dad said for quite some years he wanted to make the most amazing wines, and then he realized that the more challenging and the more desired for him, for his wine, was to touch the heart of the people and to be ambassador, so to carry a sense of place and all the characteristic of the varietals. So even if through this podcast people cannot see the area, I wish that drinking a glass of Vajra wines, they will be able to taste, to imagine, and to be in the area.
I think you're giving such a vivid description of both the place and of your family commitment that I'm sure that people will taste this in your wines.
Italian Wine Podcast. If you think you love wine as much as we do, then give us a like and a follow anywhere you get your pods.
And let's turn to just a few of your wines because we don't have a great deal of time here. I'd like to first talk about a white wine, which I was curious to read about. Your Lange Riesling. I've never had a Riesling from Lange before. How did this come about? And tell us about this wine before we talk about some of your reds.
Bringing Riesling in Piemonte has been a shock for the area. My dad fell in love with this varietal when he was writing and studying for his thesis at university. He did his university with his professor of microbiology. Was Annibale Gandini is still alive. Is a very old folks right now, but has been somebody who really touched my dad's heart as a professor. And so he badly wanted to do his thesis at the university with him. So when he went to this Professor Gandini told my dad, say, Mr. Vajra, I know you will be more interested in doing a thesis on red wines because my dad was already farming and winemaking back in time. But actually, I'm currently working on white grapes. So if you want, then we can talk. You can do the research on malolactic fermentations in white wines in Piemonte. And people were talking about two grapes. They were talking of Erbaruce, so Caluso, and they were talking of Cortese from Gavi. The third grape was Moscato, but of course, to do a malolactic fermentation of Moscato is not, let's say, like the very first connection you will create among this grape and this kind of vinification. But the best part of literature, the most interesting and the most advanced, was actually coming either from France or from Germany. And the word Riesling was keeping coming over and over again until my dad apparently found like an old bottle into his grandfather's cellar. I let you imagine those Gothic characters. My grandpa was 17 years old when the Second World War ended. So this Gothic character to him had not really like a pleasant vibe, unfortunately. And so when my father asked if he could have that bottle, my grandfather would say, yes, absolutely. Just take it away. My dad started to open the very first bottle of Riesling. Then he had access to other older bottle of Riesling. And what it was surprising him was these aromatics into evolution. Whenever we talk about old Riesling, we use the word hydrocarbs. Whenever people talk about old Barolo, in the region, we don't even use the Italian word. We use the French word. We talk of goudron. But goudron is nothing but tar. And if you think, whenever you are working with the oil, tar and gasoline, tar and hydrocarbs is exactly part of the same family. So he had this vision that a red wine coming from Piemonte, a white wine coming from Germany, two regions that historically had no connection, but somehow they could find like a midpoint. And that's how he had the desire, a little bit as a white flag in Barolo, to plant in a vineyard where he found a lot of sandy soil, his very first wine of Rhine Riesling. We do have two vineyards. One is based on clonal selection coming from the Geisenheim University. And then we have another vineyards where we had the joy to plant some vines coming from Marcel Dice and Ostertag and Ringstraat von Buhl. So friends from other parts of the world. And as you well know, it's a bit like talking about chef sharing recipe. You will never share a recipe to another chef unless you have a full trust of that person. And you will never share a vine to another vine grower unless you have a full trust. So he started to plant this vine of Riesling. He has been the very first one. Now there are over, I guess, 40 producer farming Riesling into the Barolo production area in Lange region. And then that opened up a new trend in the area.
That's an amazing story. And what I particularly like about that is that connection in the evolution of both Barolo and Riesling, that sort of petrol-y notes you get on aged Riesling, and as you say, the tarry characteristic that can emerge from Barolo with time. To make that connection between the white and the red is absolutely fascinating. We don't have a great deal of time, but I do want to both talk about Dolcetto and Barbera as well as your Barolo wines. So briefly tell us a little bit, if we can, about, as you say, these grape varieties that are equally important in many ways as Nebbiolo and very much a part of the culture of La Langa.
Yeah, you are touching like a very special point, Mark. Unfortunately, I grew up in a special family, as you already understood, and my dad always had a vision that the different grapes of the region, so Dolcetto, Barbera, Nebbiolo, he always compared to my brothers and I, and he always had this vision that as a parent, you cannot make ranking in between your kids. The moment you're going to make ranking, you're going to screw completely the education. You're going to completely screw your family. But you as a father, you as a parent, your role is about understanding the unicity and let every single grape to show its best. So this is actually a big challenge because whenever you work this way, there is no like a priority in the cellar whenever it's time to rack a vat, but the priority is to see really what is the priority among all of them. And so to spend the same care on a Dolcetto vat as well as a Nebbiolo vat, on a Barbera vineyard as well as a Nebbiolo vineyard. We have some special wine in our range. We love to give an idea through our classic wine, so the classic Dolcetto, Barbera, and Di Langhe Nebbiolo, as pictures of the grape. All of them are made with plants are, let's say, from 10 to 20 years old vines. So they already give a beautiful structure, but they are wines vinified in stainless steel. Beautiful way to be introduced to the varietals. But then we have some special, and the special touch is the age of the vine. So we do make a Coste Infosati Dolcetto, which is a crazy selection. In 2022, if you can put your hands on one of those bottles, and when you see the prices, it's almost a shock. We need all the fruit of 2 vines of Dolcetto planted in Cruo Barolo to make 1 bottle of that wine. And it's one of the few Dolcetto you can actually age. And right now, people, they don't think Dolcetto is a cool wine, but whenever it comes to food in our region, so whenever you think of the pasta, whenever you think of the veggies, whenever you think of the soups, but also the poultry, Dolcetto is a rock star. Also, whenever you think of truffles, we tend to pair truffles with aged Barolo, old Barolo, perfect in terms of aromatics as comparison. But if you shave your truffle on a cheese fondue, or if you shave your truffles on a plate of tajarin, so the local pasta, a good Dolcetto is actually killer. So something to discover. For the Barbera, we also have old vines Barbera. And this is actually goes under, let's say, more technical name, Barbera Superiore. It has its name, is Viola delle Viole. Historically, the very first vineyard was planted in Bricco delle Viole. And it's one of those Barbera that we do say in Piemonte, baroleggiano. So whenever you have the opportunity to drink a Barbera of 20, even 30 years, in a blind taste, you will get confused and think it's a Barolo, that to say how close they can get to those grapes. And there, whenever we talk about Barolo and Nebbiolo, yes, we love to give voice to the different vineyards. And the cool thing is that whenever you drink a Barolo Bricco delle Viole, and then you compare to a Costa di Rose, and then you compare to Oravera, and you can also compare to the Luigi Baudana estate, which is part of Vajra, but it's based in Serralunga, so Cerretta and Baudana vineyards. You can see that the care is the same, the winemaking is the same, and what is singing into the glass is the unicity of every single spot of land.
Oh, those are beautiful descriptions too of grapes that are so important in the heart of the people in Langa. Now let's talk about your Barolo wines. Let's talk about Bricco delle Viole, because this is the heart of the estate, isn't it?
I would say, yeah, people always tend to look for flagship wines more than calling that way. Yes, the heart is actually a beautiful expression. And I also will add probably is the wine that designed the style of the company. Because Bricco delle Viole, for the microclimate, also for the age of the vines right now, Bricco delle Viole is made with plants are basically from 40 to 90 years old. So it means a lot of consistency from one vintage to the other, but also a lot of structure through a lot of finesse. Well, Bricco delle Viole is the one that designed the style. I can paint my dad with his, at very first, with his desire to make something astonishing. Looking at Bricco delle Viole is a place, as a piece of white paper, where you can draw whatever you wanted. And then actually realizing that was not just a piece of paper, but was more like a filigrane, a piece of paper that has a train, that has a structure. And so his desire changing and turning into the desire to let everybody to notice the unicity of that piece of white paper. And so it's actually the wine that trained us to be even more gentle, to be even more delicate. And so that allowed us to approach to every single vineyards, as well to every single wine we do make with the same care and finesse and precision at the same time.
That's, again, as much a description of the wine as of your philosophy and of your approach to winemaking, and I think probably to living as well. Francesca, I'd like to turn now to the gastronomy of La Langa in relation to your wines, because it's so rich and delicious and such a grand and eloquent cuisine that is also very humble and really a fitting partner to the great wines of the area. So can you perhaps explain the foods you love best, the foods that are part of your heart, the foods that are part of your family, the foods that you'll be eating in these weeks to come, and the wines that go so well with them?
So I think that definitely like a strength in Piemonte are appetizers, as well as pasta courses. Then whenever we talk about main courses, maybe because I'm not a huge fan of meats, but yes, we have something like more like stew meat, but also like poultry. This is going to be the season for other two special into both the category. One is going to be the bue grasso di Carru. People love to make bollito, and that was actually a tradition in my family for the 25 night. So after the big lunch, yet our granny, Nonna Francesca, was inviting everybody just to have a little cup of broth. and of course, a couple of tortellini were inside, and then the meats were coming after. And whenever we talk about poultry, is capon magro, and so like definitely like a richer kind of I could say like a gallo, like a cock, I guess.
Yeah.
But then yes, appetizer, pasta, a lot of pasta in our tradition, and then quite a good amount of desserts. So let's say starting from the end, a super classic is the hazelnut cake together with zabaione and moscato. And the secret is in our way of making zabaione. I would say old Italy is putting a little drop, a little sip of marsala, but actually when you're whipping the red of the oak together with the sugar, and you're ready bagno-marie. And so when you're starting to get fluffy, the tradition is to open Moscato and to put some fresh Moscato inside. So to make way lighter and fresher.
Oh, wonderful.
This is something to definitely to discover. Definitely not the lightest. Probably the most, I will set into the most energetic side of the whole. Then appetizer, historically, the most part of appetizer, they're pairing with dolcettos. We do have a lot of veggies into our appetizers. I'm thinking of the giardiniera, I'm thinking of insalata capricciosa, insalata russa, and often there are also eggs paired with that. So there's always this kind of like greasiness related to the eggs, mayonnaise, and the tannins of dolcetto, they match with that in a fantastic way. So this is also the secret whenever we talk of pasta. Sure thing, it's Christmas time, so the pasta is not a plain pasta unless you toss it with a tons of butter and white truffles on the top. Then people love to make the classic ragu. Usually we tend to put also a little bit of a salsiccia, is a salsiccia di Bra, so it's giving a bit of an extra bite and the pungent but very gentle tones of the black pepper.
What about the agnolotti al plin?
Those are dangerous. I have to tell Mark, unfortunately I don't have as much time as I wish to spend in kitchen and making food. So I have some good suppliers of agnolotti in the region. And anytime I go myself to buy agnolotti, I have to put in the trunk of my car. Otherwise, I will eat them as potato chips from the back before I arrive home. So I love them badly. Every family makes in a slightly different manner, but it's not uncommon to have different kind of meats. It's fun because now we see super fancy meals. So the homemade pasta di tajarin, they're made with 40 yolks. And the agnolotti del plin are made with the three different meats roasted. And indeed, those were the poor dishes. Those were the little bit leftovers of the meats, maybe from Sundays, and work with a lot of veggies to create the filling of the pastas. I love our tradition because being so humble has been able to be so modern and to talk to the heart and the mouth of the people still nowadays. And then whenever you are in the area, it's fantastic because yes, you will find carne cruda, vitello tonnato, agnolotti del plin, tajarin in every single restaurant, but every single chef is going to make his own way. So it's always a good insight to me to order like a dish of vitello tonnato to see how the people are working. And the tradition is changing a lot. We were talking about that before. Consider how technology has impacted. Whenever we talk of vitello tonnato, we are talking of mayonnaise. But back in time, people have no fridge. So I let you imagine the risk of being poisoned. So the old tradition in making vitello tonnato is actually completely different from what people most part of the time can eat. Somebody said that it's called tonnato because the meat was cooked for so long time, was completely gray inside, maybe not so nice looking as what you can see nowadays. And people were taking the pieces of meat that were falling apart through the cooking with the oil of the cooking and working them with capers and anchovies and hard-boiled egg. So also this tradition changed, and I think there is so much to discover about the past of many dishes of the region.
Well, that's another fascinating story, Francesca. And what I think is really important for our listeners to understand is so many people come to Alba now for the great food and the great wines. But the way you describe the origins of your wine estate of Vajra, from the humble origins after the war and really making something great at difficult times. And similarly, the cuisine of Langa has these same humble origins. Even the tartufo, one of the most expensive foods that one can buy anywhere in the world, was a humble food that crafty people who knew where to find them could, with the use of dogs, would be able to find. And now it's become something that is sent to New York or to Tokyo, and at exorbitant cost. But basically it was something that people that with the knowledge of the land, of the intimate knowledge of the land, could find for themselves at times when food was scarce. So I think that's so interesting to trace that evolution of this wonderful cuisine, one of the greatest cuisines in Italy, to accompany wines that are truly world-class as well.
Mark, I just want to make you smile. I don't know if you ever heard, but back in time, people were making salad with the truffles. So shaving them and just put a bit of oil and salt.
Wow.
So can you imagine to order a salad like that nowadays?
Amazing. That is incredible. Francesca, final question I'd like to talk about is hospitality, wine hospitality at Vajra. And can our listeners, I'm sure after this wonderful conversation that our listeners who are located all around the world, can they visit you? Can they discover what Vajra is and your wines?
Yes, absolutely. This has always been part of the DNA. It's a very simple and yet humble hospitality. So do not imagine to see roller coasters or other things. But the desire to do hospitality at Vajra has always been about helping people to know better what there is behind a bottle of wine. I try to do it today, but the doors of our winery are always open to people who loves wine. And we always love, as you can easily imagine, people come to the area because of Barolo. They too come to the area because of truffles. But we always love to open them the eyes to other less known things, like the story of Fresa, which we didn't talk today, but end up being one of the kids of Nebbiolo, or one of the parents, according to somebody else, and to rediscover the beauty of Dolcetto. And so, yes, absolutely. We also have some special stained glass windows in the winery. They're really, really worth to be seen. So whenever you're booking your experience, you're contacting us to come and visit us, I would highly suggest to come in the morning or early in the afternoon, so you can really enjoy those windows and how they do impact our everyday world.
I've seen the beautiful colors. They look absolutely stunning and really unique. Francesca, thank you so much for taking the time to be my guest today. I know it's a busy time, but it's been such a pleasure talking to you. You've transported us all to a very magical and special world, but also to a very magical family. You've talked so lovingly about the work that you all do together, about the origins of the Vajra estate, and I'm really eager to visit and to meet you myself. So I hope we can meet in 2024. But in the meantime, thank you so much.
Marc, grazie a te tantissimo per questa opportunità. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share Piemonte, to share our land and our love for that. And above all, thank you for your love for wine and food and your desire to share that with people, because this is something that I definitely learned from wine. The best people in wine are the people that are sharing people. And this is what you're doing through this podcast. And thank you for this opportunity. Grazie mille, Marc. A presto. See you soon in Barolo.
Sì, spero di sì. A presto.
Ciao, Marc.
Thank you, Francesca. Grazie.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe right here or wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.